We're going to discuss the end of Israel. And I had an argument with somebody a couple of years ago at the feast that Israel would never be destroyed. And I said, well, what about what Jesus said in Luke? No, that doesn't matter. Israel will never be destroyed. And it's like, well, okay, what do you mean Israel? If you mean that little piece of land down there where Jerusalem is the capital city and the Israeli people, the Jews, have a government and they have a military, if that's what you mean by Israel, that is going to be destroyed. Jesus said so, right? But all of Israel won't be destroyed. And even Jesus said that some of the Jews in Israel now would be taken away captive to prison camps in other nations, kind of like World War II with Hitler. But Jesus tells us that Israel will be destroyed before his feet land on the planet. In Luke 21:20 said, when you see Jerusalem surrounded with armies, know that the desolation or destruction is near for that. And verse 21, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And what you might find interesting is, if you study what Luke says, he doesn't say, don't go down into your house. And I have assumed for many years that these were two identical things. Luke said it one way and Matthew said it the other way. But Luke says when you see armies, flee to the mountains, and he doesn't say you must not go into your house and take anything out of your house. Jesus said through Matthew 24, when you see the morning and evening sacrifices stopped by the abomination of desolation set up in the holy place, leave within like an hour and a half. Don't go into your house and pack a bag. So the armies, when you set up armies around Jerusalem, they'd be peacekeeping armies because you still have a chance to flee to the mountains. And we do peacekeeping armies in this world. We have the United Nations and they send peacekeeping armies. And that's going to protect everybody and keep everybody safe. Jesus said through Luke, when you see those armies camping around Israel, around Jerusalem, get out of town, get up into the mountains, and presumably you could go into your house and pack a bag and take a sleeping bag and take a tent and go. But if you leave it to the very last day, at the end of the sacrifice, at the beginning of the abomination of desolation, you can't go into your house and get stuff, which is what you want to do. If you all leave here this afternoon and you're going to flee to the mountains, you would like to pack something out of your house to take for the mountains, especially if winter is coming on. So anyhow, then comes the last day that you have a chance to flee, and this is the Matthew 24 section, verse 15. When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of Daniel, but the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Go back to Daniel and study Daniel until you understand, then come back to Matthew and then understand. Then those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who's on the housetop not go down and take anything out of his house. It's when the window is closing, and the way Jesus tells it, he's saying, if you go into your house and you start packing a bag, you might lose the window of opportunity to get free and get out before the war starts and kills people and takes them off to prison camps. So why is Jesus giving Bible readers a last chance to get out of town when they see these things? Because the Israeli government and the Israeli military and the Israeli way of life are going to be totally destroyed within the next few days after the abomination of desolation is set up. And Jesus, in his mercy, is saying, if you believe me, if you trust in my words, I'm giving you this last chance. Flee to the mountains where you won't be killed, or stay in Jerusalem and you run the chance of being killed or being captured and taken to prison camps. Right? So Luke 21:22 says, these are the days of vengeance, and there will be great distress in the land and wrath upon this people, right? Upon Israel. And they will fall by the edge of the sword. In modern language, they'll die in battle. Now, the Israelis are fierce warriors, and they train their teenagers, and they've got, weapons in their closets back at home in almost every house. And if there's a siren or if there's an alert, like we're being invaded, they run to their closet, they grab their their military equipment. They come out of their front door as a soldier ready to do battle. You know, everybody gets trained, right? So they fall by the edge of the sword, die in battle, or be led away captive, i.e. prison camps, into all nations, and Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled. In verse 27, then you'll see the Son of Man coming with power and glory. So you have to look somewhere else to see that there's 3.5 years of tribulation between the abomination of desolation and the coming of Christ. But a lot of times Scripture gets compacted and he just gives you highlight, and gives you a little package deal. In the book of Revelation, Jesus tells us how long Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot. Revelation 11:2, it's been given to the Gentiles and they will tread the holy city, Jerusalem, underfoot for 42 months, equal 3.5 years. So in Matthew 24, Jesus instructed his readers to study, understand Daniel on the subject of desolation. In Matthew 24:15, it says, whoever reads, let him understand. So I wonder how many of us could write a sentence or a paragraph explaining the words abomination of desolation. I've read that and I've heard that for like 50 years, and it just becomes a little catchphrase. Abomination of desolation. It doesn't sound good. Right? So back in Daniel 9:27, it says, he shall bring an end to the sacrifice and the offering, and on the wings of abominations shall one, a person, who makes desolate. So the translators gave us the abomination. Here we're seeing that there is one who makes desolate. And if you think of an abominable person who makes desolate, then it's a much better translation, it's a much better understanding of what's going on. How many of you would say that you feel like Hitler could have been described as an abominable person? Would you describe him that way? When you look at history and all that Hitler did, he was a pretty abominable, vile kind of person, right? Okay, Daniel 12:11. From the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination, okay, I put in your notes there a definition for the word abomination in Hebrew, disgusting. Okay, that fits Hitler. He was disgusting. Filthy. You could say Hitler was a filthy person, as far as, treating people well. Idolatrous. And if you ever seen some of the old newsreels of Hitler, they'd all stand by the hundreds of thousands, in the square, or thousands and thousands. They'd all put their hands out like this and say, "Heil Hitler! Heil Hitler!" Right? And that was almost a religious chant. He was almost God, but he didn't claim to be God. Right? Abominable filth is another description. Detestable thing. Well, Hitler did a whole bunch of detestable things. Right? So abomination could be translated disgusting or abominable, an abominable person, right? Okay, then that makes desolate. I looked up desolate there, and it means devastate, desolate, destitute, destroy, make waste. And then it says, is set up. Okay, so whatever abomination of desolation, and I'm seeing it and understanding it as an abominable desolator person, gets set up, okay, in the holy place. And where's the holy place? On the Temple Mount. They'll argue, is it 2 feet this way or is it 2 feet that way? But the whole Temple Mount was built to build a temple on top of. So the Temple Mount is a holy place for the holy place, right? Matthew 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination, the abominable desolator, standing in the holy place, what this means is, what does he mean standing in the holy place? Paul makes this plain. If you join Paul with the abomination of desolation verse, 2 Thessalonians 2:3, that day will not come unless the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition. So Paul is saying a person is going to be revealed, right? What is this person like? What does he do? Verse 4, who opposes and exalts himself above everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he, the person, sits as God in the temple, shrine, holy place of God, showing himself that he is God. Now, I don't know that we've ever seen this in human history, but a person claims to be God and is believed, right? I mean, we've had people claim to be God, right? And the two witnesses, we had people claim to be lots of things, but they weren't credible. In this case, he will be credible. And he will be the man of sin, he will be the son of perdition, he will be the abominable desolator, and he will claim to be God. Which God? Jesus God. Because Jesus has told us in the 66-book Bible that he is coming back to planet Earth to rule all nations. Well, this abominable desolator person claims to be God, claims to be ready to rule all nations, only he does it by, if you don't agree with me, I kill you. And most people go, oh, I think I agree with you. I don't want to die, right? Okay, when Jesus comes back, does he say, I'm going to kill you unless you come to the Feast of Tabernacles? No. He says, if you don't want to come to the Feast of Tabernacles, your punishment is no rain. I'm not coming over there to kill you. You just don't get any rain. And I will try and persuade you to come to the Feast of Tabernacles next year. Right? So from the time, this is Daniel 12:11, from the time of the daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Okay, we've all heard of 1,260 days, 3.5 years, but here's an extra 30 days longer, right? So from the time the daily sacrifices are stopped and the abomination of desolation, there's going to be, 1,290 days to the finish line, to the coming of Christ. 30 days after the sacrifices end, the Israeli military will have been totally destroyed. Now, I expect that if you attack Israel, the Israeli military, you are going to face the fiercest battle you have ever faced. Will the Israelis just throw up their hands, throw in the towel, and surrender? I mean, the Israelis have been trained since they were young people that there is coming a massive onslaught, and they've got to fight like crazy. And they've had multiple attacks, and they have fought like crazy, and they've won the day up until now. But the last big war was tanks and aeroplanes, and now everything is switched over to rockets. How do you stop a rocket, right? If you've got a good Iron Dome and there's only a few rockets coming in, you can stop the rockets that are headed for population areas. But 150,000 rockets with guidance systems, it's like, good grief, that's awesome, right? If they all fired at once, if somebody said, okay, when the clock strikes 12, light up your rockets, and all 150,000 started going to their targets in Israel, that would be the end of Israel. I mean, but it's not going to happen, right? That's the good news. That's not going to happen. It's planned to happen, but God's not going to let that happen. So down in Daniel 12:7, he gives, it shall be for a time, times, and half a time, which is another way of saying 1,260 days. So here is the 1,260 days, the 3.5 years that we've all heard about many, many times, right? And it says, and when the power of the holy people Israel, right? When this was written, Daniel was a prophet to the people Israel. Israel was a nation, right? And so when Israel's power is totally destroyed, utterly, completely shattered, all these things will be finished. So now we've got a 3.5-year period to the total finish of mankind and the coming of Christ. So you come back 1,260 days, and that's the total destruction. There's no more Israeli military, there's no more Israeli government, and all the Israeli Jewish people are either dead or they're carted off to prison camps. So then you add another 30 days earlier than that, and you come to the abomination of desolation. And that's why Jesus said, flee to the mountains on that day, because the war could be 28 days long, right? You start fighting against Israeli military, they will fight fiercely, especially on their own territory, So the abominable desolator person, the beast king of Revelation, is set up in the place of sacrifices and then brings destruction that causes a temporary end